1 second before I start reading. It's up there. I need my mic. If you see the other mic up there, grab it. There we go, plugging in the mic. Let's see if this works better. Real fast, just because I noticed it, I want to show why I can't get or lose any friends. I can't gain or lose a friend. If I gain or lose a friend, I'm screwed. Anyways, now that I've made that joke. It was a quiet morning. Normally he would wake up to his parents arguing before one of them stormed out for work. The sunlight shone in through his bent blinds. Ellis threw aside his small, frayed blanket and sat up. His clock read 7:02. He still had an hour before the bus. After searching through his nearly empty dresser, he finally threw on the sleeveless shirt he wore earlier that week. Thankfully, it still smelled like his cologne. He grabbed a pair of faded blue jeans and his last clean pair of socks. Before going downstairs, he pulled on his thin jacket to cover his arms. In the kitchen, his sister Thea was making breakfast. Their mother, Maria, couldn't even make toast without burning it, but Thea worked at a diner as a cook. Ellis got his plate and sat, clearing a spot on the table to eat. He could tell Anton had already got up and left. He had left empty bottles on the table and counter. Ellis was actually glad his parents had already left. Maybe their first day of school would be easier after a calm morning. After breakfast, Ellis helped his sister clean up before the bus honked out front. He threw away the trash and bottles, and put away the food while Thea washed the dishes. When the bus pulled up, he grabbed his leather jacket and his backpack, while his sister found the house keys. She locked the door behind her and handed him the spare. On the bus, his friend Ty had saved him a seat. Thea went to the back to sit with her boyfriend, Ryan. He was a nerdy-looking guy. The glasses and messy hair just added to the look. All the boys in school had tried to date her and couldn't believe she picked Ryan instead of a jock. She was easily the most beautiful girl in town. Page 2. Hold on. 3 and 4 got mixed up. Let's hope that doesn't happen anymore. It makes more sense when you know what happened. After she hit puberty, Anton decided he wanted her. He said he's the father. She had to let him. Her own father was her first, and she never forgave him. Side note, this never happened to me. This story is fiction. I feel sorry for my character, but this never happened to me. So please don't worry about me. Back to the book. The next day, everyone at school could tell something was wrong. She always looked so strong and had a smile no matter what. They asked questions and hugged her. At lunch, she sat alone. away from all her friends. Ryan sat down in the seat next to her. He didn't ask anything. He didn't try to touch her, just sat with her so she didn't feel alone. She asked him out the next day. She never asked him for money or to do her homework. She let him hold her when she cried. He'd brush her golden locks out of her face and wipe away the tears. Anyone else who tried that was likely to get hit or end up with an elbow in their stomach. Eventually, she told him what happened, and he never changed how he treated her. They have been together ever since. Ellis never had to worry about that kind of attention from their dad. Instead, Anton would ridicule him and beat him. His mother would have to call him in sick for school for days at a time so his bruises and black eyes could fade. Ellis never left the house without a jacket to cover his arms. The leather jacket gave him some padding, so he wouldn't get caught wincing when someone bumped into him. Ty was bigger than Ellis, which wasn't hard. A tree branch was thicker than him. Ty had been a football star in middle school. He made varsity freshman year. Nobody ever got on his bad side. They didn't want to be hit or tackled. He was normally the class clown, always trying to make people smile and laugh. But he had one rule: no bullying. Anyone stupid or crazy enough to break that rule realized their mistake before the end of the day. When Ty found a group of kids pushing around a smaller boy, calling him names and laughing at him, he went into action. He saw the bruises on the little kid and gave out a few for the others. They swore they never hit him. They didn't bruise him, just pushed him around the circle. A week later, Ty noticed a new bruise on the back of his neck, one the size of an adult hand. No amount of begging made him stop. Ty went to their house and went inside. He saw Anton passed out on the couch and started walking towards him. Thea came in and held him back. She told him if he did anything, it would just make it worse for them. Ty held his tongue and his fists. He protected his new friend at school. His mother even welcomed Ellis into their home and treated him like a second son. When she started getting sick, the boys helped take care of her. Ty made sure she took her medicine and helped her get around. Ellis cooked and cleaned for them, even preparing a meal for dinner, so all Ty had to do was heat it up. On the way to school, Ellis told Ty about their morning. He knew Ty would be happy to hear he hadn't gotten hit or yelled at already. Then the boys started talking about the classes they had. Junior year was going to be rough. But at least they had some good teachers. Eventually, Ty changed the conversation to girls. He had a list of girls he wanted to date before homecoming so he could take the best one with him. When they got to school, the pair went to their shared locker before heading off to different homerooms. Ellis no longer needed Ty at his side to feel safe. He knew that if anything ever happened, Ty would make sure it didn't happen again. Everyone knew they were friends, even if they hadn't yet realized Ellis and Thea were related. They only had a few classes together, plus lunch. None of the teachers decided to assign homework for the first day, though they had to take a couple pre-tests in math. The boys had social studies together at the end of the day. The way I had to print these pages irritated me. Yep, I knew it was going to happen. There we go. The teacher made them watch the news and have a discussion over it and the major events of the last year. Pausing for a second because this is about to get really good and I'm about to get into it. My paper's ready. Make sure my next pages are in order. Awesome. Let's get into this. About a year ago, a nuclear power plant blew, releasing its deadly radiation into the air. It caused a freak storm that slowly covered the continent. Hundreds died. That wasn't the end. Soon after, freak accidents started happening. The accidents became known as incidents. People all over had been affected by the radiation. Only a fraction of the population developed strange abilities, but that was enough to scare the rest. The people who had been changed were called powers. Everyone else was a regular. There seemed to be no reasoning as to who became a power. One woman was supposedly a regular right up to the moment that she stopped a bus to save her kid. The bus might as well have hit a metal beam. The engine was totaled and the driver was stuck. Another man was a firefighter. He was rescuing someone's dog from a burning building when suddenly it blew up. Everyone else around or in it was burned or killed. His clothes had been damaged, but his skin was unscathed. Just imagine that. Firefighter walking out of the burning everything. Clothes burnt off. But the firefighter's alright. He's got some like charred marks from the clothes burning off. But just wanted to make that mental picture for anybody who didn't get it from in between the lines. One sibling would develop powers, but no one else in the family, or the whole family would get them. Twins always seemed to end up having similar powers, but even they differed somehow. The theory was that nuclear energy supercharged the storm, and some of that energy bonded with part of our DNA. Not everyone had the same molecule in our DNA that allowed the radiation to bond. They believed that was why twins developed similar abilities, having very similar strands of DNA. It would take years of study before they came up with anything concrete. For now, everything is still based on theory and possibility. The government had decided it was safest if these powers were separated from regular people until more was known about them. As they began locking away the powers, the number of incidents dropped drastically. Those with useful abilities were allowed to train and would be integrated back into society after they had learned control. The ones deemed dangerous were locked away. The most dangerous were put in solitary confinement or put down. Here's my sorry, not sorry. That's all I'm saying. For the safety of mankind, if anyone has knowledge of any power, they are asked to come forward. Any information that leads to the apprehension of a power will be rewarded. Turning over any dangerous powers will beget a much greater reward. Does he even know that word? Probably not. On the other hand, withholding information, assisting, or hiding any power will be treated as an act of treason and dealt with accordingly. Do your duty, not only as American citizens, but as regular humans. Help us so we can save you. The president had gone to great lengths to ensure the safety of regulars. Many believed he was doing so as an attempt to cling to power and prevent those with true powers from rising. His term was supposed to have ended the year of the storm. He declared a national emergency and a war on powers and demanded that he be allowed to stay in office, claiming that it would be too great a risk if they were to elect a new president, who would have to be briefed and caught up on everything that the government had kept from the public, so he could remain in office for an indefinite amount of time. The teacher had them discuss their opinions. As regulars, they still had the freedom of speech. It was okay to talk about all sides of the response to powers. However, it was not allowed to cross the line from talking about helping powers to actually helping them. While everyone in the class held vastly different opinions on the subject, more than a few believed that the powers were still people and deserved to be treated as such. Others believed their newfound abilities made them dangerous to society, and that they were no longer human and therefore should not be given the same rights. The teacher asked the students, "What if one of them developed powers? What if their best friend developed an ability considered dangerous, even though they knew their friend was not?" It wasn't just an overnight kind of thing. Powers seemed to develop anywhere, at any time. What if this became something more than just a news report on TV? Would they still hold to their beliefs, or would it become a reality in their own life, change their perspective? What if powers were allowed to roam free, keep their rights? Everyone has read comics. Many people worldwide grew up seeing superheroes on TV, seen heroes swoop in and save the day because a dangerous villain put countless lives at risk. There were good people with powers who stopped the bad ones that regular people didn't stand a chance against. They protected the world. If powers were allowed to be free and treated as citizens, our heroes could become a reality. Powers were locked up and treated like a disease. Criminals were given better accommodations. It didn't matter if they were young or old. Children were put in cages. So many in one that they had no room to lay down. Families were separated. Others were in hiding or on the run. They were no longer seen as equal, simply because an act of God gave them abilities that made them greater. Slaves had been given their freedom. Women could vote. Gays could get married. Foreigners were given citizenship. The nation had taken so many strides forward, and yet treated these powers worse than any minority group before them. America was the land of the free, where everyone was given the same equal and undeniable rights. Anyone could become someone greater. It was a land of wealth and prosperity, a melting pot of the world. Did America do what was right, or take a giant leap backwards towards discrimination and segregation? Naturally, the class erupted into a debate, with the teacher playing mediator. Everyone was allowed to state their opinion that was then put up for the class to discuss. Some thought it was justice. Others believed it to be cruelty. Ty believed it was wrong to lock up people just because they were different. Oop, that one flew. Unless they do something to deserve it, they shouldn't be treated like prisoners of war. Ellis was at the back of the class and was the last one to be asked his opinion. He agreed with Ty, but was asked to build on it. Since he was the last before the bell, he had the rest of class to do so, leaving a bit of time for discussion. He said, "These people never asked for powers. It's no more their fault for being a power than it was a gay man's fault for loving another man, or someone being born with a different skin color. If they are dangerous, they should be treated as any other dangerous human. If they use their powers to hurt or kill others, they should be treated like any human who uses a gun or knife to hurt or kill others. Otherwise, they should not be treated as a criminal." He believed that by treating them as criminals, society is telling them that that's all they can be. It will make some lash out in violence simply because it is all that is expected of them. However, if they are treated as human beings, they are held to the same standards and expectations that they had grown up with. Their DNA may have changed, but not their personality or sense of right and wrong. Who are we to say that one person is bad for being able to do something different? If we treat them as animals, what does that make us? Hi, Aunt Lacey. Hi, everybody else. Sorry, I totally saw Lacey pop up, and I just like, hi, Lacey. Are we really any better than what we do? Then are we really any better when we do worse than them by using our differences to justify our crimes? Our people have always used others as a scapegoat. Society is wrong because a set of people are different. We've since overcome that limited and damaging frame of mind and supposedly become better than our hate-filled predecessors. Now we seem to be trying to one-up people like Hitler, who threw people into confinement camps and killed millions because he believed he was better. The bell rang before anyone had a chance to respond. The teacher had not wanted to interrupt him for debate because he had brought up points the rest of the class had not seemed to consider. Even the teacher was not as proud of Ellis as Ty was in that moment. Why was Ty so proud, you wonder? When Ty was a little boy, he watched his father die. A man that had been beating his wife, and his father intervened and stopped him. When the police showed up, all they saw was a black man hitting a white man. They shot on sight. No questions asked. Without announcing himself, he fired 3 rounds into Ty's father. The officer later said he warned him multiple times to get on the ground and saw the man pull a gun. Believing the husband to be in immediate danger, he shot to kill. The man still held the husband at gunpoint after the round in his right side, then the one close to his heart, so the officer fired one last round. The coroner said it was not the final headshot that killed him, rather the one in his heart. Ty's father didn't own a gun. The police had to plant a fake one to cover up for the officer. Many people call it justice, believing the lies fed to them. Very few people believed Ty. Ellis had heard the story through his father. He knew that if his misanthropic father believed every part of the story, something had to be off. He did some digging and found out it was one of many elaborate cover-ups. After further digging, he found something that cleared Ty's father and incriminated the officer. The gun had been found on his body, was registered to the officer, and the only prints on it were the officer's. The original copy of the forensic report had been altered, and the details in the report did not match any of the eyewitness statements, including the husband's. Ellis took what he had found to an officer of color who did everything he could to right the wrongs of his fellow officers. I gotta stretch, one sec. Ellis had never cared about skin color. He saw Ty as his brother from the day Ty became his friend. The only difference that mattered to Ellis was that Ty was bigger and stronger. He stood his ground. Ellis would take any punch thrown his way. Having grown up with his father, he knew sometimes it was easier to take a beating than to fight a battle he couldn't win. Ty, on the other hand, always stood his ground. Always stood up for what he believed in. When he was knocked down, he'd get up and hit them back twice as hard. The only fight Ty ever backed down from was also the only one Ellis ever fought. I think I just messed up my papers. Clearing his father's name and getting justice. Ellis knew Ty didn't tolerate hate and bullying because of what happened. He loved that about Ty. Even after seeing the worst part of society, he still believed in good and fought for a better world. He never threw the first punch, just the last. He stood up for the little guy and gave a voice to the voiceless. He knew the world wasn't sunshine and rainbows, peace and happiness, but did everything he could to make that a possibility. Back to the story. It's what the little symbol is for, the pauses in the story. After school, the boys walked to the diner where they always went to do their homework. They had had their own booth, even before Thea started working there. The only thing that changed was that Ty no longer had to pay. Thea covered both boys, knowing her brother didn't have any money, and Ty needed every penny for his mom. Most days, they would go out to the woods or volunteer around town after they finished their homework. Football practice hadn't started yet, so they would normally have plenty of time. However, Ty had started work a few days a week at the ranch to make money for his mom's medicine. The checks she got from the state no longer covered her medication, bills, and food. Sadly, that's not just fiction. That is a reality for a lot of people. But there are people who are doing something to change that reality. Ellis would trudge home on the days Ty had to work. His parents were usually gone all day, but occasionally his father would come home after work instead of going to the bar. His mother stayed in the office from open to close, rarely ever seeing anyone at home. Ellis was happy with this arrangement. His parents got along as often as the blue moon was actually blue. When he got to the house, he noticed the driveway was empty. If he had seen his father's truck, he would have snuck through the back. Instead, he walked through the front door. He took off his backpack and hung up his leather jacket. There was a crash in the kitchen. Before he could hope, the neighborhood cat got in again. He heard his father. "What the hell? Were you too good to buy me more beer now? Just wait till she gets home. I'll teach that dumb her lesson again. Maybe this time it'll stick. Who the fuck is that? Who's there? Home from work already, Thea, honey. Need me a drink and some companion? Yo, it's you." Anton's disappointment was as clear as the bottles shattered on the floor. "Stop being so useless. Clean this shit up already, or I'm throwing the next one at your sorry excuse for a face, you pathetic little wimp." This is where I start feeling sorry for my characters. Ellis held back a sigh as he grabbed the broom. He knew his father was looking for a fight. He always was when he was drunk. It was best to shut up and just do what he was told. He had barely been sweeping when his father yanked the broom out of his hands. "Think I didn't see you roll your eyes, dumbass? Don't want to help dear old dad? Maybe I'll teach you a lesson instead of your mom. Why do we even bother sending you to school if I have to teach you shit all the time?" He swung the broom, hitting Ellis in the side. Again, this time aiming for his leg. Then his back as Ellis fell. Smack! Again. "Little twerp, this will teach you to be disrespectful to your superiors again." The back again. He pulled the broom up, getting ready to hit Ellis in the head. Ellis could barely breathe. His legs were numb. He was face down on the ground, yet he knew where the broom was going to strike next. He had had enough. Enough pain, Enough of laying down and just taking it. He knew his father was bound to kill him. If not this time, then the next. And he was done. The broom made its way down. Everything seemed to slow down to a crawl. Ellis closed his eyes and screamed as he braced himself for the blow that never came. Suddenly, his scream was replaced by Anton's. The room began heating up, as if somebody had turned the furnace on full blast. Ellis opened his eyes and saw the broom burning on the ground. He looked up and saw the fire burning up Anton's arm. All of Ellis's pain melted away as the flames surrounded him and his father. His father's scream was drowned by the roar of the fire. Within minutes, the entire room was engulfed in a flame unlike any he had ever seen before. He could feel the fire, as if it were an extension of himself. He felt it spread into the living room and climb the stairs. He saw it enter his room, felt its hunger as it ate his bed. The frayed blanket and busted blinds becoming fuel as his room was reduced to ashes. He felt the fire dance past his sister's room, rushing down the hall to his parents. His rage for his father driving it further, pushing it through the door. He felt the explosion of pleasure as the fire consumed his father's bottles hidden in the dresser and at the back of the closet. His mother's work that was more important to her than her kids suddenly became nothing. He felt relief as it all crumbled to dust. All the pain, the memories, nothing more than ashes and dust. He felt the fire die down as his anger he had built up throughout his life was turned to bitter satisfaction. All his suffering, eaten by an ungodly fire that had been born of his pain. The rest of the house untouched. Ellis stood in the charred remains of the kitchen, smiling down at what was left of the broom. All the bruises and broken bones had healed in the fire. Then realization set in. Not only had he burnt half the house, he had killed his father. He had developed a dangerous power. They would lock him up if he was lucky. His sister would be kept under a close watch. Even Ty would be in danger. His anger was replaced with fear. Ellis stood frozen, unable to believe what he had just done. Murder. Arson. Those were bad enough when a regular was guilty. They would see him as a deadly power. He'd be lucky if he ever saw the light of day again. They'd lock him up in a concrete room where he couldn't burn anything or anyone ever again. Even he and Ty had agreed, if they are dangerous, they should be treated as any other dangerous human. If he is more deadly and dangerous than any human, how would they treat him? Regulars needed something to start a fire. They couldn't control what it did and where it went. He could hear the sirens approach. The fire alarms must have gone off before they were too burned to a crisp. Ellis took off out the back door. His house was near the forest. He just had to make it there. With the cover of the trees, he'd be safe, as long as he didn't start another fire. He ran and ran to the deepest, darkest part of the woods, and further still. So there was no more sunlight or moonlight, it's supposed to say. It's supposed to say moonlight, I think. Yet he could still see clear as day. Just how much had he changed, he wondered. Fire he could feel. Seeing in pitch black? What else? Ellis continued running, hiding during the day. He learned how to carefully use his fire to hunt small animals, burning the fur off and cooking it at the same time. He worried what was going on at home. Was his sister okay? Ty? Did they realize it was him that burned the house and killed Anton? Or do they believe it was someone else? Was his mother pretending to worry, making a big deal out of his disappearance while relishing in the fact that she never had to deal with her husband again? Was there a funeral? He barely slept, plagued by these questions and so many more. For months, he continued running, hiding during the day, training every chance he got. He began to understand his newfound powers. His fire was an extension of his body, able to be controlled with a mere thought. He learned how to use it to enhance his senses. He practiced honing in on different sounds, listening to the forest and each of its unique voices. He tested his strength, lifting fallen trees and boulders. He wished he could tell Ty everything that was happening, everything he could now do. If Ellis had stayed, if he had told Ty anything, he would have put a target on his best friend. So he kept running. Eventually he found an old building, forgotten in the middle of a forest. Barely even a trail remained of the road that once led to the circle drive out front. There were bricks and entire chunks of the wall scattered across the lawn. Vines climbed up the building, pouring in the craters of the walls. He figured a forsaken ruin was better haven than the woods. The sun had just begun to peek out over the tree line, just in time to watch him squeeze through the waterlogged boards that served as a front door. He fell against the support beam, out of sight of the nearest fissures. The moss felt like a soft carpet, covering most of the broken concrete floor. There were flowers and weeds breaking through. It looked as though nature was trying to reclaim the land, no matter how hard the building fought back. Before Ellis was able to relax enough to sleep, he heard voices several floors up. They were faint, drifting through the cracks and holes in the floors above. He got up and found the staircase, though it more closely resembled a death trap. He carefully made his way up, testing each step before putting his weight on it. The floor where the voices were coming from was only a matter of steps further when the step he was on gave way beneath him. Before he could jump or fall, he was lifted into the room by air. Inside, a boy held his arm up as if he was holding Ellis by the collar. He looked about the same age as Ellis. Behind him was a little girl. She looked like a miniature version of him with long hair, her golden locks hiding her face, hiding her fear. She looked as if she was about to cry, or perhaps just finished. Nearby stood a young woman in a tattered dress. There was a muscular man who reminded Ellis of Ty. Another boy, only a few years younger than Ellis, glared at him. The only one who didn't seem scared or angry was the girl at the back of the room. She smiled at Ellis as she pushed her chocolate bangs out of her eyes. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The boy in front raised his arm, lifting Ellis a little higher as he waited for an answer. Even after Ellis told him he was like them, a power on the run, the boy kept him suspended above an opening in the floor. The boy demanded Ellis prove he had powers. Ellis used the fear he had been running from to surround his arm in flames. Before he had the fire out, he was placed on the ground, safe. "My name is Ethan. You already know what I can do. This is my sister, Jules. She's a teleporter. The angry one over there is Cruz. He's a speedster. Tony is a big guy. His skin doesn't just look like stone. Laura is the oldest here, though you can't tell when she's by Tony. She can control water. Smiley back there is named Ray. She probably knows more about what you can do than you do. We've been hiding out here for a few days now. Can't seem to stay away from the hunters lately, but we managed to get a short break. Apparently there's some new power out there. Killed 2 people and burnt down part of their house. They've been hunting him for months. Not very many powers who have killed people. They want to find him before others think they can get away with it. Rumor is, whoever did it can control fire. Any chance it was you? Ellis told them what had happened. He knew if they knew the whole story, he'd have a better chance of them believing him and trusting him. Jules ran up and gave him a hug when he finished. Their father tried to kill Ethan when he saw him catch a vase before it crashed to the ground. She grabbed him and teleported them to a nearby park where they began to run away from the hunters. They all had their own horror stories. Cruz found out about his speed during a race and almost got shot when he stopped running. Laura discovered hers during a swim meet. Her boyfriend broke up with her, saying he wouldn't be caught dead with a freak. He got the college football team to chase her off campus. Tony found out just how resilient his skin had become when his teammates tried to beat him with shovels. Only Ray hadn't been hurt. She was on the run because she knew that if the government found out what she could do, they'd turn her into a tool and use her however they saw fit. Ray had been an orphan. Her parents died when she was a baby. Her foster father was the man who started the hunters. She knew that if he found out what she could do, he would find a way to make her work for them. She would be able to tell them what people could do, allowing them to find the best way to prevent them from using their powers. However, she knew that any power could be used to hurt people. If they knew the full extent of people's abilities, they were more likely to treat them as dangerous criminals on the off chance that they would use their powers in a way that could cause harm. Each of them had abilities that were either considered dangerous or useful to the government. A soldier who was impervious to gunfire. A man who could zoom in and out of enemy bases, gathering intel without ever being seen. A girl who could teleport hunters to hidden powers before they got the chance to run. A woman who could drown people using the water particles in the air. Ethan could fall into either category, holding powers until hunters came, or choking the life out of the hunters from a safe distance. They ate breakfast and shared stories, their own and ones they heard from other powers they had met along the way. Before they knew it, they were laughing like old friends. Afterwards, they let Ellis get some much-needed rest, while the others decided what to do. With a power like his, they would be a lot safer. He'd be able to protect them from the hunters and buy Jules time to get everyone to safety. Since she could only take one at a time still, they had to be careful. Most of their powers were defensive. They weren't as good at offense as someone who could control fire. We're going to leave it off there, about halfway through the book. I'm not going to read the other half of the book out loud. You'll have to buy it. But this right here, I'm getting ready to glue this book together, make a binding, make a cover, turn it into a, real thing, right? Not just a bunch of papers, but a book. This book right here is going to have notes, highlights, little pieces of information. It is going to be designed for somebody who wants to read more than just what's on the pages, who wants to know what's in here too. For those people who want those spoilers for the next series, for the next book. It'll also come with a special page for the reader. It's not going to be about the book or anything like that, that special page is going to be me thanking you, I guess. It is thanks to you guys that I've come this far, that I'm now writing books, that I have this here to be able to do something with. It is thanks to your support. And every now and then to your guidance when I need questions answered. When I don't know what a character would do. It is also thanks to you just for reading my book, for buying it. This one is going to be given away for free, but every copy after is going to have some extra special tidbits. Might even use some invisible ink just to make it fancy, hide some stuff in there. So that way you got to look. I'm an author, guys. Just did a live reading of a book. It's been on Amazon for a year now. Got several other books on Amazon. I'm just pulling up the book real fast. So I can show you guys. Now, check this out. This is my proof price. For me to get a copy of this book, that's all it costs. So, if you want a signed copy of this book, all you have to do is message me. I'll quote you a price, and I can get you a signed copy of either Dragonfyre or World on Fire. And I can fill it in with little bits of notes, snippets of author knowledge, and a special thank you just for you. Not a generic thank you to whatever reader happens to be reading it, but say you, Nikki, were to get this, then I could easily just specialize it just for you. Put your name on there, stuff like that. That's the cover. I am having stonework on making some new covers for me, so I can be able to update some of these books with some actual custom artwork. But if you're okay with reading it's not long. It's a small book, which is why it's 60 pages. As you can see from this, that is how small the book is. It's not a full page. That's why it ends up 60 pages. But for just over $10, about $11.99 with tax, well, without tax, let's see, it says free delivery Thursday, July 3rd on orders shipped by Amazon over $35, or Prime members get free delivery Sunday, June 29th, if you order within the next 8 hours. Which means you could have your book this time next week in time for, let's say, me to sign it for 4th of July. If you were to have me order the book, I could get you a signed copy of it, or you could just order the book and have your own copy. These copies that you order, it's up to you what you do with it. If you want to read it, give it away to family members, donate it to high school, something like that. My books are not made with children in mind. World on Fire is a little bit more child friendly. Dragonfyre is not meant for children. Just putting that out there. Sorry, it's been a bit since I've read what this says. And consumes my dreams like Dragonfyre. Anyways, if you want to read the rest of the book, go ahead and get on Amazon. You can either purchase it on the Kindle or get a paperback so you have your own copy of it. Something better than that. I will be getting ready to work on the next book. I hope all of you guys have a wonderful day. Enjoy your weekend.